Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts College Football Podcast, your ticket to all things college football. Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? Join us as we talk college football from the national championship to college rivalries to bowl games to the Heisman Trophy to which conference is the best. We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between.
What is up? Welcome into the GSMC Football Podcast. This is the College Football Edition, and as always, for the College Football Edition, I am your host, Tom Dougherty. This podcast is brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network, as we will be bringing you all of your college football news on this episode, as I always do on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays on the Football Podcast. All right. Lots of stuff to cover, as we had a bunch of spring games over this weekend. If you listened to last episode, my last episode on Friday, I covered and previewed all of those spring games that happened on. A couple happened on Friday. Most of them happened on Saturday. Some were not. I don't think some were canceled due to weather. I know they were preemptively canceled. Michigan canceled theirs due to weather. There's bad weather all over the Midwest of our nation, Midwest and central part of our nation over this weekend. All right, so we're going to get right into it. First segment, we're going to talk about Clemson as they continue to have questions on their quarterback. Second segment, we're going to go over some stuff when it comes to new quarterbacks and new teams coming into their season with a new quarterback, whether they lost a quarterback to the draft or they're going to just make a change. And then third segment, we're going to talk about the NFL draft and maybe go down into some sleepers or talk about some guys that we saw at the Combine that are some fan favorites and where they might go throughout the draft next week, as we are now under 2 weeks away from the NFL draft in Dallas at Cowboy Stadium. It's going to be Thursday the 26th, so it's 10 days away officially as we continue our run-up to the, like I said, always have been saying, the perfect meshing point between the NFL and college football as our favorite college football players, and some of those guys maybe you haven't heard of because they were just sleepers going to a small school, with the NFL teams have heard of them, and they will get selected to be playing in the National Football League, the highest level of football in the world. All right, we're going to get started with Clemson. As we've been talking about them a lot, they were the number one seed coming out last year into the college football playoff. Then they came out and kind of laid an egg against Alabama, only scoring 6 points, giving up 24. So Alabama came out with vengeance after squeaking into that college football playoff. And there's definitely been some question marks. We've had people questioning Kelly Bryant's ability to lead this team. He obviously led the team last year to an ACC championship game, got him into the spot, was a Manning Award finalist in his first year as a starting quarterback after sitting behind Sean Watson for a season or two. All right, so, Dabo has come out. Coach Swinney has come out and said that Kelly's a starter. They got him coming back from next year. Our starter is returning, so he's the starter. However, the spring football game on Saturday, which was on ESPN, so nationally watchable, was a place where a lot of question marks were raised, as we had the guy that I highlighted on Friday, Trevor Lawrence, the 5-star recruit out of Georgia. He played on Saturday as well, and he did better than Kelly. And when I say better, he did a lot better. I know it's spring football, but Kelly, again, it's only spring football. Kelly Bryant he's only able to complete a few passes, only 35 passing yards on 15 attempts, while Lawrence completed 11 of his 16 attempts for 122 yards and did throw a touchdown. No picks for Mr. Lawrence. So, definitely a question mark as you have some stuff lingering with Dabo, as he's going to be like, I don't know what I'm going to do when it comes to Kelly Bryant, because he's definitely been having some issues, struggling with his accuracy on the deep ball. Trevor Lawrence, the guy who is very highly touted. I mean, this is supposed to be a race where he was going to be sitting in there, didn't really have a chance to. He'll probably sit a year. He would definitely have his day. He's not going to. They didn't recruit him for no reason. He's going to play for the Clemson Tigers, but just the question is when, and is it going to be sooner rather than later? So they're saying that Kelly Bryant entered the spring with a big lead, a big gap between these other. I think there's 2 or 3 other quarterbacks that are vying for this job as well. And Kelly had a lead on him, but it's kind of dwindled away as the gap has conceitedly closed. And we have a lot more reports saying that Clemson, that Trevor Lawrence is more than that real deal that he's been touted at. I mean, he's been touted as he's a 5-star recruit for a reason, but he's become even more than that. I mean, he definitely looks the part and plays the part, as he looks very good on Saturday for that spring game, connecting with another good upcomer, T. Higgins, a receiver. I mean, he got him on a 50-yard touchdown pass. I mean, his second throw of the day. So, I mean, you got to like that. But, I mean, Swinney did get asked again on Saturday, and if Bryant remains that number one quarterback, and, I mean, he did have a good quote saying that they'd have another scrimmage. This is just another scrimmage for them to look at. I mean, he's kind of giving that runaround answer. He's no definitive answer in this quote there, but they're going to have some exit interviews. They're going to talk to everybody, blah blah blah. But they'll sit down and we'll meet with everybody and what they've got to do over the summer. And then, because I mean, these teams, they're not playing together all the time. They have spring football. Basically, spring football ends, you got summer, then you come back in August and get right back at it. So, I mean, there's going to be a bunch of time in between where these players are going to have workout regimens, skill level tests to get up to. So, I mean, you got to be able to keep it up and keep it up throughout the summer. And we'll see if guys are going to be regressing or striving for getting some steps filled and taken over the summer, even when they're not with the team. So that's probably what's going to make a difference. They definitely were able to make up a lot of ground in the spring practices. If Trevor Lawrence, especially Trevor Lawrence, and then also there's Hunter Johnson and Chase Bryce, who are also in there at quarterback, trying to vie for Bryant's job. But definitely a question mark when it comes to Trevor Lawrence and Kelly Bryant. I mean, which one? Pick them. You have a guy who's definitely had the experience, has been able to get a team to the college football playoff in a number one ranking, and then you have basically the chosen one. Well, not the chosen one. I'm not going to say the chosen one because this isn't LeBron James over here, but it's football. And when you have a 5-star quarterback recruit who's throwing dimes on the sideline to your standout receiver, who's also coming into the season looking like he's going to have a big year, you got to like that. You got to like that a lot if you're Dabo Swinney. It definitely raises some question marks for them. So out in Clemson, their defense is already pretty nice. I mean, look at that. I'm looking at the highlight. I've already seen it, but look at the highlight right now. That's a pretty nice ball right on the sideline to that front pylon. I mean, they always used to say, Joe Montana used to say that Bill Walsh was like, okay, I know you were taught on deep balls, you want it about 10 inches from the numbers so they can reach their hands out and catch it. I want it 7 inches from the numbers, because from their chest. I want it dropping right over their shoulder, right in the breadbasket. I want Jerry Rice to just have his arms out and just have the ball fall in his arms. That's what I want. So, I mean, and that's pretty much what that pass looks like right there. The guy just got away from his defender, and the ball was right there in the breadbasket over the shoulder. So, I mean, I know I have my opinion. I saw Kelly Bryant play a lot last year. He's a good quarterback. He's doing all right, but he's not going to beat Alabama again for you, I don't think, and that's what you have to do. He might win another ACC championship game, But if you want to have the scruples like Nick Saban does and putting in that freshman like he did last year with Tua, you might have to make a little move here, Dabo, and decide to put in the young guy with, well, I mean, they're all young, they're in college, but the younger guy in Trevor Lawrence coming out of that school in Georgia as a 5-star recruit. I mean, he did not get that assessment for no reason. He's quite the talent. I mean, he looks the part, plays the part. I mean, all these guys like, oh, does he have a quarterback look? Does he look like a quarterback? What's the deal here? I mean, I know one of my favorite radio guys, Colin Cowherd, he's come out, he's definitely said a lot on his show that like, oh, yeah, I heard about the fact that they've done studies that like guys who are better looking are better at quarterback because they know how to deal with adversity, or they know how to, they're more, the confidence level is up. So they're always going to be confident. They're never going to have to, if they get down, if they get criticized, they're going to be like, okay, no, I'm just going to push it aside. They're going to push it aside. They're going to use it as fuel to work on. They're going to have their confidence is never going to be questioned. And it looks like Kelly Bryant's confidence level might not be that high right now because of what's happening right in his face at the spring practice, not showing out the way he wants to, but it's only spring practice. But these guys have definitely, especially Trevor Lawrence, who probably has all the confidence in the world right now, nothing to lose there, as he was not expected to be vying for this job quite yet. Definitely an idea that you can see Dabo swirling in his head at this time, having a mull over that decision, as he's you can tell through that quote, he probably was not ready to make this decision quite yet right now. Obviously, he doesn't have to. They have a long summer to figure it out. But if you're Dabo, you kind of already have an idea in your head, I'm assuming, when it comes to what's going to better lead your team to another college football playoff title, like you did with Deshaun Watson. So, I mean, that's everything I've read. That's probably everything that Dabo has seen, that you have a guy like Trevor Lawrence who has all the skills that Deshaun Watson had when he was at Clemson, and maybe even exceeding some of them. So, just a tough decision here when it comes down to this place when you have to make a decision between a quarterback that's been there, and a new guy. I mean, it's a little different than Nick Saban, because Tua was already there, and Tua played in the national championship game, and Tua won the national championship game for the Crimson Tide, versus Trevor Lawrence not having had a snap yet in actual play, or meaningful play, that is, for the Clemson Tigers. So, yeah, Dabo, got a decision to make. I mean, you got a lot of time to make it, though, but maybe you can get a little in your head sometimes when you have a whole summer to figure it out. And when you have a guy who's coming, you love to have guys come out and have a good spring practice, but wouldn't you want your starter to come out and have another spring practice, a nice one too, a nice spring season? I mean, they have 15 spring practices and some scrimmages mixed in there. So, I mean, you want Kelly Bryant to come out and assert his position as the starter. And, he hasn't really done that. So, if you're Dabo, you got to be asking some questions. You got to be getting on Mr. Bryant and seeing, hey, buddy, you're making this too difficult for me. You got to make this more easy for me. If you really want to be the starter, you got to make it more clear cut, and don't let these guys start nipping at your heels. Whereas, you came into spring with a big gap between you and them. You don't want that anymore. You want to be able to. You don't have that anymore. That gap. You don't have that gap anymore. You have no gap, it looks like, as these guys have really closed it and become a big topic, as everything I'm seeing here is now all talking about the questions at quarterback in Clemson. I mean, that's what drives this show. That's what drives what I'm talking about, what's going on all around the college world, what's everybody else talking about, what are my message boards lighting up about, what do you guys want to hear about? So I think Kelly has got some work to do over the summer, but I mean, for me, I'd really want to see Trevor Lawrence, especially. Well, I think we're going to see him sometime this season, because I don't know how Kelly's going to do. He's going to probably get his ego's a bit shot if he can bounce back and use this as fuel to fuel his season this year, and as a show me season. It's like, hey, I can do this. You guys are doubting me. Let me get on this right now and show you what I could do. That'd be a good thing if you could see that this coming season. It would be nice to see for the Clemson Tigers. It'll probably mean some wins, and it'll probably mean a good position in the College Football Playoff yet again, because their defense is going to be there. I've talked about their defense a lot on this show, and the fact they're returning a lot of guys, and they got some very talented young guys on that defense. Their defense will still be there. Got to get that secondary figured out, but that defensive line definitely will be there, and they'll be able to disrupt opposing quarterbacks and definitely stop some runs. They run attack for a lot of teams. So Clemson, Debo, you got a lot of time to figure it out, but I think I already know who I'd like to see, and that's the young Trevor Lawrence, and then we'll see how he does. Probably throw him in the fire. I bet he'll eat it right up as a guy who's been very highly touted out of high school and coming into Clemson as a winner, and as a guy with all the utmost confidence. I can talk, and lots of good qualities and good skills for him to work off of. As you can see, he's already been compared to Deshaun Watson. All right, so that'll wrap it up for this segment. We'll get to some more stuff regarding spring football. I know there's some news on Kyler Murray out in Soonerville in Oklahoma. We got some stuff coming out of Virginia Tech and Virginia. So we'll go over some more of those spring games, and the fact that we have a lot more stuff to talk about when it comes to this. As we even Jimbo at A&M, we're going to talk about him a lot in the next segment as well. We'll be right back for all of that.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. This is the College Football Edition. We talked a lot about Clemson in the first segment, pretty much all about Clemson in that first segment. Now we're going to get to some more schools. We're going to bounce around the nation and how everybody did with our spring games. I know we had some issues out in Alabama, out in Tuscaloosa, as we had Tua Tagovailoa had a setback with his throwing hand, the injured throwing hand he had, and will likely miss the spring game, or he did miss the spring game. They had their spring game on Saturday, I believe, or Sunday. I know Tua was still battling with that. I thought he was going to. They said he might be fine, but I guess we're having a setback regarding that. And then I know in Texas A&M, with the new coach out there, Jimbo Fisher had a record turnout for the spring game, and a new look Texas A&M, and they got they had a record turnout there at Kyle Field in College Station. So I mean, that if you have imagined, I mean, their annual maroon and white game at Kyle Field, I mean, they had the 48,129. I mean, that's not the whole. That's about half that stadium. That stadium is one of the biggest stadiums in the nation when it comes to attendance to capacity. I mean, I think they could fit over 100,000 people in that stadium, and especially now after the renovations. So that's still pretty good. Almost 50,000 people coming to see a scrimmage. So I mean, they're going to be coming out with two competing quarterbacks. They had Nick Starkel, Kellen Mond. We talked about them a little bit. I mean, this is going to be the first season for Jimbo Fisher. Unofficial on-field start for him on Saturday at the Texas A&M game. maroon versus white team. The team white did beat team maroon 30-24, but it was the guy last year. I mean, Mond started 8 games last year. Starkel started 5. So, I mean, they had their moments, as they definitely are going to be in a heated competition for this starting job. Starkel finished the game with a game-high 373 passing yards, 2 touchdowns on 26 of 42 passing, but did throw an interception that led to a score for the opposing team. And Mond was 19 for 26 for 180 yards, 3 touchdowns for the white team that did get the win. So, I mean, it does come down. Obviously, these are just quarterbacks. When you have a team, a scrimmage especially like that, you probably have one team has the number 1 running back or the other team has the number 2 running back. Colleges, whether they have a 2-back system or one, will remain to be seen. We'll see what Jimbo wants to do. But Jimbo did like what he saw from both passers. Not ready to put a tag on who's going to be the starter. I mean, this is the spring practice. Definitely, we're seeing something we're seeing similar about around the nation regarding these quarterbacks and the fact that these battles are going to be lasting throughout the summer and likely into the fall as we get late summer, early fall as we get into the season. Same thing we saw in Clemson. So it is going to be interesting. They do have their big guy, the big tight end. He's going to be their breakout guy, Jace Sternberger. He's going to be the guy to look at as a tight end side. I like tight ends. I've always been a fan of tight ends. They kind of are the versatile player of that offense. They block. They can go out in pass catching scenarios. They get matchups against safeties and against tight ends. So you got to be able to have a good safeties against linebackers. Tight ends do. So you've been seeing them around the NFL kind of almost revolutionize the vertical passing game, especially with when we saw Jimmy Graham like in New Orleans, or Gronk, how we've seen Gronk in New England. So we'll continue on and talking about this tight end thing. Sternberger was the MVP of the spring practice and this of the scrimmage. So in front of all those guys, they do have some still questions, obviously, on the quarterback. Fisher just said there couldn't be anybody. There's no way he can name a starter right now. It's too early. The offense is still kind of figuring itself out. They're still getting to know it, fine-tuning it, and figuring out who's got a set of skills that will be best utilized to run that offense the best way. I mean, you obviously know who your starting tight end is going to be, though. Jace Sternberger, he was pretty productive on Saturday afternoon there with 8 catches for 147 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, he was a college junior transfer, the first to commit to Fisher after his arrival at Texas A&M. I mean, the pro style offense that Fisher's going to be running suits him perfectly. Texas A&M isn't really. They've had some big receivers come out, like Mike Evans, but they haven't been able to get in the tight end market quite yet, because this is not the kind of offense they ran back when they had guys like Johnny Manziel at the quarterback position. So now they're going to be running more of that pro style offense, pro set with single back, 2 backs, more of a tight end set. So they're definitely going to be worked in more, as you saw we're at Florida State. Tight ends were definitely worked into the passing game, as they were caught 181 passes while he was there, in the past 6 seasons, versus Kevin Sumlin only 32 passes. I mean, that's why I was like saying the tight ends had not really been a big part of that offense there at Texas A&M. Now they will be with Jimbo at the helm. All right, so Jimbo was pretty pleased. I was pretty pleased what is something to be pleased about? I mean, your team's played a nice, hotly tested game. They're within 6 points of each other. Both your quarterbacks played pretty well. You obviously had an obvious star with the guy scoring twice and getting over 160 or 100 and over 100 yards there for Sternberger. So yeah, if you're Jimbo, you got to be happy. You can't shy away from that one. I mean, his team's going to figure itself out. We'll see if they can contend in that they're in the SEC West. So I think they should be able to maybe get into that SEC championship game in his first season at the helm. I mean, that's why Texas A&M went and got him. That's why they probably made him the deal they did, because they want to get a guy who has a championship pedigree like Jimbo does. And Jimbo, I don't know what his deal was over at Florida State. I mean, it was kind of a weird thing coming in as Bobby Bowden's successor. They told him he was going to do it. He was there. He was the offensive coordinator for Coach Bowden. So being that successor at Florida State, maybe living in the shadow of Coach Bowden himself. He did get the national championship with Jameis Winston, but now he's going to try and go do it again in College Station, a place that has been desperately wanting to be back in the forefront. I mean, they had their time of glory when it was the Johnny Manziel show, but it was definitely a little short-sighted, as Johnny was just a lot of flamboyance. They did beat Alabama. They stunned Alabama there, but that was about it. And then they weren't able to get a good. I mean, Kevin Sumlin is known as this great recruiter, but he wasn't able really to get that kind of recruiting class he wanted at Texas A&M and find that quarterback he needed to make it go. But now they're going to have probably more of a refined, simpler offense with this Texas A&M under Jimbo Fisher, and then starting to get their defense figured out, because that's what it seemed to be. Texas A&M seemed to get in a lot. They could score the ball, they could score points, but they cannot get that defense figured out where they were able to stall offenses and extend leads. I mean, you can go look at that game last year that may have been the leading to Kevin Sumlin's firing. The game where Josh Rosen was against UCLA, where Josh Rosen was able to score 3 times. How much was Texas A&M up in that game? 23, 24 points. And Josh Rosen was able to come back and win that game in the final seconds. So definitely got to figure that defense out. Jimbo can do that as well. He's always been a guy. I mean, they had a nice defense over at Florida State. Obviously, he had guys like Jalen Ramsey who would definitely help anybody out when it comes to defense. When you have a corner like that, a lockdown corner, and then their offense is pretty darn good too, keeping that defense well rested and not on the field very often. So out there in College Station, you got the good season to look out to. I mean, you got a long time. Jimbo's not going to tell you who your quarterback's going to be, but you can definitely get an idea that it's going to be a good little battle between the two guys who did start last year. They both got over 5 or more starts last year, so we'll see how it works out coming into the season in August. We do have a long summer ahead of us. We do have the draft ahead of us. In the next segment, we're going to be talking a lot about that draft. And we'll probably go over some more mock drafts, see how these teams have kind of figured themselves out. If we're going to be close to the chest, if we're going to have kind of a week of silence going into draft week, because there is just so much that can happen. There can be so much shakeups. There can be trades. I think there's going to be a lot of trades. That's the thing. There's going to be a lot of trades because this is a deeper draft. When it comes to different kind of positions, you can get a lot of different value in the draft. I mean, we've been saying on here for a while that if you don't want a quarterback and you have a pick in the first 5 picks and you're not getting a quarterback, it's more valuable for you to trade back because that pick is more valuable than whoever you would pick in that position anyways. So unless you're picking a quarterback, of course. So guys in teams like the Giants, if you don't want Josh Rosen, if you want Bradley Chubb, maybe trade back and see if he falls to you or if Minka will fall to you. So you don't need to reach up, and you can try and maybe coop some picks and get a bunch of picks off of a team like the Bills or the Cardinals coming up in the draft. So in this segment, we did go over a lot with spring football. I was talking about Jimbo Fisher a lot. We talked about kind of some comparisons over from Clemson and Alabama regarding their quarterback conversations and not maybe call it controversies, more competitions. Let's see words. And then I think next segment we're going to go over the draft, and then I didn't really touch on Kyler Murray, but we're going to touch on Kyler Murray in the next segment, as he is going to be the replacement for Baker Mayfield, and he's going to be working hard on that one as he came over from Texas A&M, actually, team I just was talking about, to play for Oklahoma and be that next guy at for the Sooners at under center. All right. So we'll be right back with all of that. And until then, enjoy these messages.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA Podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, welcome back. This is the GSMC Football Podcast, the college football edition. We've been talking a lot about spring football and the different quarterback competitions, not controversies, that's the NFL word, competitions in the spring football world and the ranks of college football, some of these top schools still kind of deciding who will run their offenses in the fall. All right, next up is Oklahoma. There's Kyler Murray. I mean, he's working on a couple different things right now. I mean, is he doing two sports right now? He's definitely doing some stuff. I think he's doing track, or he's doing in football, but he's definitely running, dealing with some competition regarding his job at Oklahoma and the quarterbacking and the replacement of Baker Mayfield, because obviously Baker Mayfield is going to be drafted, likely for a first round pick. We'll get into that maybe next segment. My feelings on Baker Mayfield, on pretty much the only team that I think he would be successful with or have the chance for success with, Arizona, maybe, probably. I don't think he's not big enough to be durable enough to play in a cold weather stadium or a cold weather division. And if you get drafted by the Jets, you're playing in cold weather 3 out of the 4 times, and division opponents. I mean, you get a break when you go to play in Miami, but then again, Baker Mayfield in Miami, that might be even more dangerous than Baker Mayfield on a snowy day in Buffalo. So I don't know. Might have to watch. I put a chaperone on him in Miami on the night before the game. So yeah, and also maybe just wrap him in a parka when you go to Buffalo or New England on a blistery December evening or afternoon, whenever you might play them. Because I mean, if Baker Mayfield gets drafted by the Jets, I guarantee you they will throw a Jets Patriots game on a national televised game. No joke. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. No question. So he'll have to, and it's probably going to be in New England. Like, make the kid go to New England and play Brady. Doesn't matter. Sunday night, Thursday night, Monday night, doesn't matter. They'll play, and it'll be cold because it'll be November or whatever, and it'll be cold. So, yeah, good luck with that one, Baker. After playing in Texas and Oklahoma your whole life. There's no tornadoes, but there's snow, and it's sub-zero temperatures or frigid temperatures. So have fun with that one. That's why you kind of got to cross your fingers. Play in Arizona, please. Arizona, because I get to play in a dome. I get to play in Santa Clara. I get to play in basically a dome. It's not really a dome, but it doesn't rain that much during the off-season, during the football season in Seattle. And then in LA. And it's like, the Coliseum, where you probably played there before. So I mean, if you're Baker, you'd be like, Arizona, please, or maybe even the Broncos. That would be interesting because I mean, it does get cold in Denver, but you play in Denver, and then you also get to play in Oakland. Kansas City, and then LA again. So we'll see what happens with Baker Mayfield. But this is about his successor at Oklahoma. This is the college football show, well, Baker's still technically college football. It's the draft. It's the perfect mesh point between the draft and the NFL and the college football and the NFL. I'll just keep saying it because it's really cool. I love the draft. Love the draft. Can't wait till 26th. See who goes number one, because this is not Jadeveon Clowney automatic number one. This is not. Last year there was a little bit of question marks regarding if who the Browns were going to take, but this isn't the year before where it was like, okay, is it Jared Goff or is it Carson Wentz? This is going to be, okay, who does what? Who makes what trade? Are the Browns going to take Sam Darnold? All right. But we're back to Oklahoma. Kyler Murray. One of the most, if not the most decorated high school athletes in the history of high school sports, basically. I mean, especially in Texas. I know we got Jake Browning over at Washington that broke pretty much every record there is to have when it comes to quarterbacking in California. And I think he even broke a national record or two. But that's just because Folsom and their offense was just ridiculous. I was lucky enough to see that firsthand. It was pretty amazing. But definitely over at Allen High School in Texas, Kyler Murray, no stranger to playing against in big crowds. If you haven't seen it, go look at a picture of what Allen High School's football stadium looks like. It's pretty legit. But definitely when it comes to the job at Oklahoma, he's not the only man there. There's a guy by the name of Austin Kendall that is going to be fighting with Kyler Murray. I mean, he's been holding him off so far in the in the spring practice, but definitely Murray, who is not only a football player but is a baseball player, and is playing center field right now and playing batting cleanup for the Sooners, who are a team that are a very good baseball team. Maybe I'll have to talk about him on the baseball show on Wednesday, because that's pretty interesting. The fact that he's going to be the starting quarterback for your football team, likely. And then he's also going to play center field and bat cleanup for your baseball team. So, I mean, that's some Russell Wilson qualities right there. If you want to make a comparison, Russell Wilson actually is technically property of his baseball rights are property of the New York Yankees. And I don't know if it's for a show or for publicity or whatever it is, but he usually goes to spring training. Whoever. I mean, I think it was a Rangers prospect prior to being traded. I don't know. Yeah, I guess they traded him to the Yankees. So he got to go. He went to spring training for the Yankees and played in a game or two. Got a couple at bats. He didn't do very well, but yeah, he's a pretty good quarterback though. So I mean, we can't knock Russell Wilson, but we'll see if Kyler Murray is going to do the same kind of thing. And then obviously, if you're a good enough baseball player to get drafted and play in Major League Baseball, I know it's a smaller roster, so it's tougher to get up there and you have to deal with the long, grueling season of baseball, but the contracts are guaranteed, my friend. Well, when we're a little far off and maybe a little premature talking about it, but the contracts are guaranteed for Major League Baseball versus if you're an NFL player. And yeah, maybe he'll be a great college football player and get drafted number 1 or number 2, whatever, first round draft pick for NFL. That's nice. But then you're under the scrutiny of being a starting quarterback, and you get a rookie contract, and maybe you say you get a second contract. That's not all guaranteed. You have to negotiate to see how much guaranteed money you actually will get. They can cut you whenever they want. Baseball, totally different story. You can go play baseball and be the starting center fielder for the Tampa Bay Rays, and still if they sign you to a small deal or whatever, you're going to get every penny of that. So I mean, I don't know which sport Kyler or Mr. Murray likes better, but he's definitely being tested right now, as he will be playing baseball as well as doing the spring football his spring football duties over there in Norman. So I mean, he did it this weekend, and I think that's pretty much it for when it comes to spring football right now. He's definitely feeling it, as he has been quoted in saying that he's feeling it in his legs. The fact that he's definitely doing double time right now, and this baseball team, the Sooners baseball team, is pretty good. So we'll see how he does, and if it affects his ability to get into the spot where he can be the successor to Baker Mayfield. And I've already said what I have to say about Baker, but when it comes to athletes, Kyler Murray definitely up there on the ability to juggle two different things and get into the position where he can be the next guy at Oklahoma. All right. Any other news? We're going to go through the draft in the next segment, my last segment. So we definitely have some more news regarding the fact that there are a lot of spring football stuff happening this weekend. I know Willie Taggart had his first spring football game with the Florida State Seminoles. They rolled out a new look offense on Saturday. It's going to be looking for consistency and more up-tempo play from their quarterback position as they had their Saturday, their Garnet and Gold game. Definitely embrace some changes as they had a record crowd of 60,000. We thought there was a lot of people coming to that game at College Station for the Texas A&M game. Down in Tallahassee, they had a game. 60,934 people showed up at Doak Campbell Stadium for the final spring matchup. And Taggart was definitely happy about that. Quoted in saying there was an impressive crowd and lots of energy at that game. It's definitely going to be a little preview of what's going to be going on for our first game. And that'll be September 3rd against Virginia Tech. So definitely a lot of up-tempo offense to bring in that where it came from in college. The NFL has already kind of adopted it, the fact that they're going to go. A lot of teams are going no huddle. They ran. Taggart did come from was in Oregon for a year, so maybe he just kind of got little Chip Kelly-itis and wanted to go fast. They ran 85 plays in the first half and 125 in the game. So they second half was played with the running clock, so they didn't stop the clock in the second half. This is just a scrimmage. But he could definitely make some changes, make some good changes at Florida State. Now it's stepping in for the guy who I was talking about in just a little bit ago, Jimbo Fisher. So he definitely was trying to just kind of work out some kinks. Definitely figure out what they can do regarding the getting some consistency at offense. They can't have he doesn't want as many mistakes. Obviously, when you're a football team, you don't want many mistakes. You got to outlook the fact that DeAndre Francois is still dealing with some legal matters. Did he even play in this game? You got DeMarcus Christmas, who's very good. On the defensive side. So he's been figuring that out when he comes to the defense, but on the offense, he's definitely going to have to do some questions. But definitely got some good qualities to build off of for Willie Taggart. Got some good got some good quotes and speech from his players in support of him. So like even Christmas saying that they have already built some good chemistry. And it was a nice quickie, the fact that he got their respect as players and came in and started pushing them right away to get better and to get back to the spot where they wanted to be after a kind of a disappointing season last year. I know they had some issues with injury with Francois, but the quarterback with Blackman and Bailey Hoekman had some flashes. Both had some nice flashes during the games, and definitely a mix. Definitely the mix for a starting spot going into the preseason stuff. Obviously dealing with, they're both probably going to be front runners now with the guy who they thought were going to be coming back, Francois. The guy they thought were going to come back and take that job, stranglehold that job, is now already dealing with some legal stuff. So I don't know. We don't know what's going on there. If he still remains part of that competition, he didn't take part in the drill, any of the drills over the off season. He's still rehabbing for that injury, the knee injury. But then also, like I talked about in the last episode, was cited for a marijuana position on Thursday, and his second off-field incident since Willie Taggart came out to Florida to be their head coach. So probably not looking like he's in the good graces with Coach Taggart there. All right, so continuing on about Florida State, they got some good running back depth, some good things to look at as we came through that spring football. I keep saying spring training, that's baseball. Spring football game, as they got a nice 5-star prospect coming in after a redshirt year in Kaylon LeBourne. He's 5'11", 205 pound running back who was redshirted last year, but a 5-star recruit, and did conclude the spring game with a 91-yard touchdown during the second quarter when he was given a nice hole. So you gotta like that if you're really Taggart. You gotta get some good mix and match there when it comes to offense and defense. I mean, offense when it comes to running game and passing game. That's what I meant. Defense. Florida State will figure out the defense. They got some good defensive players. I already talked about DeMarcus Christmas, but they got a nice little defense. But they're going to figure out their offense, figure out who their quarterback's going to be. Like a lot of different teams have been talking about this. This episode has kind of been the quarterback question episode, where we're just kind of going through the different big schools that have these questions and these decisions for coaches to make at quarterback, and who we're going to be talking about throughout the season. All right, so that'll wrap it up for this segment. In the last segment, we're going to go over some more draft stuff. We'll talk about Shaquem Griffin a little more and some news that came out about him. Mel Kiper's got some stuff about him that he came out and said regarding the draft and where he might go in the draft this next week, a week from Thursday. Everybody, it's getting close and it's getting exciting. We'll talk about it when we get back.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
All right, and welcome back. Just like that music. All right, welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. As we come to the end of our show here, this is the final segment of today's show on a Monday. As we continue to count down to the NFL draft, we went over a lot in this show regarding the spring football showings of some of our favorite schools and some of their quarterbacks that will be vying for the starting spot at those schools. I know Kelly Bryant has to be thinking that he's got some guys nipping at his heels there at Clemson. Tua Tagovailoa could not play in the spring game due to a setback for his hand injury, but I think he's doing just fine. He's kind of cemented his spot for that number one quarterback spot in January when he won the national championship game, and then over in Texas. You have a couple different guys who are going to be fighting for a couple guys who've been fighting for that spot, and then obviously Kyler Murray in Oklahoma, who is not only trying to get a starting spot on the football team, but is a pretty darn good baseball player as well, as he is over there playing for that top ranked or top seeded or top ranked Sooner team, at least in the Big 12. They are the number one team in their conference. All right. That's baseball. This is a football show. All right. So we're getting into the draft now. I know I kind of teased a little bit. We're going to a little bit of Shaquem Griffin news. Mel Kiper Jr., our draft guru at ESPN, who we only see one time a year pretty much, has come out and said that you're probably going to see Shaquem going no later than the third round, which is just nice. He could be picked by the third round, Kiper is saying. And this is the guy who ran a 4.3 640 looked just fine and through the gauntlet drills, catching the ball. I mean, he did put on a prosthetic arm during the what was it, the bench press? Yeah, bench press. Did 225 on the bench press and did it, I think, 36 times or something, or 40 times with the prosthetic arm. That's pretty amazing. Or a little hand. I mean, he's got, obviously we've seen it. He's has been without a hand, I believe, since he's 4 years old due to a birth defect. But that has not stopped him from being one of the top linebackers in the nation. He's definitely a guy who can make any team better. I mean, when you're a linebacker, it's all about speed, lateral quickness. I mean, being able to diagnose plays and getting into the running lanes, into those different gaps that the running backs might coming through. And then obviously timing your blitzes. I mean, there are lots of different things being a running back. You're the quarterback of the defense, especially for that middle linebacker. So, I know there's lots of different stories come out. He's has a whole band of fans behind him, especially children. I mean, he's his children. I mean, he's definitely a very inspiring man, very inspiring player when it comes to NFL future NFL stars or NFL players in general. I just can't wait to see which team is able to call his name on. Whether it's Friday or Saturday for in the draft, because remember the first round's only on Thursday is just the first round of the draft, because they each team gets like 5 minutes, so it takes a long time. But yeah, no, he's definitely got some guys, some people who are going to be hoping to hear his name. There's a lot of people he's been working with down in Central Florida. He's got a very charitable man. He's been working with a lot of young people, and then in their fight or in their lives as an inspiration to them, as a man who has overcome some great hardships in his life and some great doubts, as he obviously has been playing at a high level amount of football without his left hand. So they definitely want Shaquem to go to the NFL. I mean, there's lots of different teams who are going to be who they might pick to want him to go to their favorite team. I know I have my undisclosed favorite team I've been talking about that. Honestly, I would not mind him on that team whatsoever. He's a good linebacker, and I think he can make a very big impact to anybody's defense that he would end up going to. I mean, he did really pop at the draft, and I've even watched some of his highlights. I mean, he played at a school that went undefeated last year at UCF. They're not the top conference, but I mean, it's still Division 1A college football, and you can't knock that. So, and they won a big bowl game too. So, definitely can't knock that. And when it comes to the draft, you can't knock the fact that he's going to probably be picked by the third round. And that's nice to hear, as he's going to be picked for his talents. And that's for sure. Going throughout the draft here, I still think there's going to be lots of trades. There's going to be lots and lots of trades. I know the Giants have already come out and saying that they really love Saquon Barkley. He's been there. He's one of their top prospects that they've ever rated. I know that Saquon's going to be part of that. Hey, rookie, welcome to the NFL, and he seems pretty determined, obviously, when it comes to being picked either first, or whether it's first or second. I don't know if he really cares what's going to be first, but it's just interesting. Wow. The more and more reports I get on this draft stuff, the more stuff I read. There's people who are coming out with these where every team makes a trade instead of doing a pick, where every team makes a trade instead of making a pick. I mean, then where would everybody be? We wouldn't have a draft. We wouldn't have any NFL players. It's kind of silly. All right. So, I know I have my mock drafts. I kind of went through my first 11 picks. It's not that deep of a defensive draft. I mean, of a wide receiver draft, but we'll probably see Calvin Ridley drop a little bit. His draft stock has definitely dropped a little bit. Had a decent pro day and a decent combine. I can't get it out. Had a decent NFL combine, decent pro day, but definitely a guy who's probably had his draft stock drop a little bit over the few days, just because of the ways people are people are trading picks and which teams are sitting where, and just it comes down to needs. I mean, that's always been the question when you talk to GMs. are you looking to, especially in the first round, it's like, are you looking to fill needs, or are you looking for just the best available player? I mean, in the first round, the answer should probably be the best available player on the board right there. Whatever your draft board might have on it, you look for the best available player. So, but regardless of needs, and then maybe you could look at needs throughout the remaining rounds, because you have a lot of time to find some talented players. A lot of these teams definitely have a lot of these teams have multiple picks in a round. I know the team that picks the most picks this year are the Green Bay Packers with 12. We'll see if they actually use all 12 of them. They can definitely trade. And then there's a couple teams that only have 6, so they'll probably be looking to make some deals maybe with those Packers. I know the Giants only have 6. They probably could make a deal with the Packers to try and get some picks there. I mean, they're sitting at 2, and if you absolutely love Saquon Barkley, you can take him at 2. If you really want to, you haven't had a really franchise running back since Tiki Barber over there in New York. So yes, Saquon at 2 would not be the worst pick, especially if you already come out and saying that you don't like Josh Rosen, that you like Sam Darnold, and then if Sam Darnold gets picked first, you're kind of off the hook there when it comes to quarterbacks. So Saquon at number 2, they've already come out and saying that they love Saquon a lot. So we have a lot of different stuff. Everybody got their own mock draft. Everybody got their bold picks, or I mean, if every first round pick was a trade, and we've already talked about the fact that the Patriots could use all their picks that they've gotten now collected in the first round to use them to try and trade up and get Sam Darnold from the Browns. I mean, that's what Colin Cowherd likes to talk about. Just to give you a name really quick, just what we've been hearing around the water cooler, or on the radio sphere, is the fact that the Patriots, I've talked about it before, they have all these first round picks. Why not trade up to the first pick and get Sam Darnold? Just something that could happen. You never know. And definitely it's as interesting as it comes when it comes to quarterbacks and in the NFL draft, because it always is, who's going to get the Tom Brady? Who's going to get that quarterback in the 5th round that ends up being the greatest of all time? I mean, it's kind of crazy how we like to think about it all. But I don't know why a lot of these drafts have Minkah Fitzpatrick dropping. I think he might get picked like 4th to the Browns again, but then again, you never know. The Browns could trade that 4th pick into the Bills, and the Bills can get Josh Rosen or something like that, which would not be a bad play anyways. And the Jets. The thing is, the Jets go into Baker Mayfield. Everybody says Jets to Baker Mayfield. I don't know. I don't know about that. But then, yeah, I just don't know about that. Yeah. The only reason we have like the questions maybe is that the Browns they have not come out and saying that they like one quarterback more than another. Do they make a Browns pick and not pick a quarterback, or do they make a really Browns pick and maybe get Josh Allen, who might not be the most polished quarterback or coming out, but he's got the biggest arm and the most lovely deep ball? I mean, I don't know. Can he throw into a tight window though? Because then if you pick Josh Allen first overall, you're basically giving Sam Darnold to the Giants, or forcing the Giants' hand to pick a quarterback. But I don't think the Browns really care about that. I don't know why you'd want to do that, but yeah. So we'll see if Saquon falls. I think Saquon might fall a little bit if the Giants don't get him. Nobody's really going to need him until later in that first round, because the Jets need a quarterback. The Browns are probably going to trade that pick to the Bills or the Cardinals to get a quarterback, and then at 5, that's why I've been saying maybe Saquon goes 5 to the Broncos. I think I've talked about it multiple times on the show that the Broncos are going to snag Saquon at 5, and that's about as far as he goes. And then at 6, who's at 6? The Colts. The Colts are at 6, and the Colts are getting Quentin Nelson. If the Colts don't get Quentin Nelson, I don't know what's going on. That's pretty much my only lock pick of this draft. Everything else can go haywire, trades up the yin yang. Never know what's going to happen But the Colts get Quentin Nelson, please. They're going to get Quentin Nelson because they need somebody to protect Andrew Luck. He's already been broken so many times. You don't break him again because you can't freaking get a good offensive line figured out. And Quentin Nelson is the good start right there. Very highly touted guard out of Notre Dame. So got to get that figured out. Gotta like that pick right there. That's my one. That's hopefully my one lock of the draft is the Colts sitting at 6 instead of trading and getting Quentin Nelson. And are we seeing all those guys? I mean, if they don't get him there, if the Broncos maybe take him first, that's the thing is the Broncos might take Quentin Nelson before they do. And if they don't get him, then they're probably going to pass on Saquon too and get Bradley Chubb. Or they're going to trade it back to 7 because the Buccaneers have 7th pick. So there's a flip-flop picks there so the Bucs can get Chubb and or the Bucs can get Saquon and then the Colts would get Bradley Chubb. But yeah, you never know. We're still 10 days away. The draft is just a mystery right now. So many different trades that can happen. Lots of positions, lots of teams that are in position to make more deals. Like I said, even the Patriots are in position right now, honestly, to hypothetically get up into that first few picks, maybe get into that 4th pick and get their next quarterback. Says Bill Belichick has never gone into a season without having a idea or a young guy sitting there at his backup quarterback. All right. We have reached the end of the show today. It is a Monday. I'm going to recap. We just talked a lot about Clemson and their quarterback race. We talked about Texas A&M and their quarterback stuff and Jimbo Fisher coming in his first season. We talked about Florida State. We talked about Oklahoma and Kyler Murray and the fact that he's juggling 2 sports at one time. And then we also talked about the draft. More about the draft and everything that is going to be going on, and some news that came out regarding the Giants saying that they really like Saquon and will probably take him if he's available. But, I mean, do they really need him? Or are they just saying that? Is it just being leaked? We don't know. The Giants are really good at just leaking information and just letting people think about it, just like they did with Odell Beckham and that whole debacle. But, all right. We will see you on Wednesday for another episode, another edition of the college football, this college football edition of the football podcast. Tomorrow, Jesse will be on for just your run-of-the-mill football podcast. Nothing special. No, I'm kidding. Jesse's show is good. Listen to Jesse's show. But mine's this is the college football edition of the GSMC Football Podcast. Tomorrow, Jesse will have the GSMC Football Podcast talking about everything, likely NFL and college all over the world, all over anywhere. Des Bryant, no matter what, he's got it for you. So tune in for Jesse's show tomorrow. If you love your football, I'll be back on Wednesday for some more college football news and updates, and probably some more draft stuff, as we like to see what these teams are going to be doing and coming out with throughout this week leading up to the draft. All right, so we're going to talk about that when we come back on Wednesday. Until then, everybody have a good time.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.